Welcome back from lunch. Hopefully everyone got some kind of tasty food. Yes? Just now full? Okay. Our next speaker is passionate about marrying practical psychology and mobile technology, which sounds pretty cool to me. She made Gratitude Journal. She also wrote Idea to iPhone. Carla White.
Hello, hello. There we go. Okay, good afternoon. Before I begin, I just want to tell you guys how honored I am to be a part of a week-long knowledge-sharing event because when I started creating apps in 2008, I had absolutely no idea where to begin. In fact, this was the only Apple device that I owned at the time. Yeah, the gateway gadget. And I am from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And for those of you who don't know, that is in America. It's about as landlocked as you can get in this continent and about as far removed as you can get from anybody who knows how to create apps. And to make it even better, I worked at a government facility that is 10, 15 miles out of town. So all that green stuff around there that's cornfield. So I actually worked in the middle of a cornfield. Now, if it hadn't been for the guys from, Tap, 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 or Koi Pond, or David Loventhal, or Jonathan Blackson, there's a lot of you rock stars out there. Yeah, there he is. Say hi. If you guys haven't helped me out over the years, I certainly wouldn't have been standing here today, so thank you very much. And it does me great honor to give back to this community that's helped me get this far. So. Now, the reason that I live in South Dakota is because that's where I grew up. I was born and raised on a farm. Well, I was born in a hospital, raised on a farm. And I have generations of farmers. And this is my grandpa. And he's actually, I think, 4th generation farmer. And this is my dad. Yeah. And you can see generations of bullshitters, too, because my dad is not actually riding those ponies. He had my mom Photoshop that for a Christmas card one year. And my grandpa's fish is not that big. This is like 1948 BS. It's hanging from a string on a stick. So growing up on a farm is quite a unique experience in many ways. And when I was 9 years old, I witnessed a miracle. Now, see, when you grow up on a farm, you're forced to hang out with your siblings. So I hung out with my brothers and sisters all the time and played with them. We actually tormented each other more than played with each other. And we had a 6th member to our group, which was our dog, Sandy. Now, Sandy was really old and blind in one eye, but she went with us everywhere. And in fact, like if my parents needed to know where we were at on the farm, they'd just call out for Sandy, and if she came from the barn or the fields or wherever, that's where us kids were. Well, one day Sandy gets really sick, and she's very lethargic, so my dad takes her to the vet. And he comes home from the vet without Sandy, and with the very sad news that they're going to have to put her to sleep. Now, us 5 children were absolutely inconsolable, wailing and crying and freaking out about it. And my dad's telling my baby brother that Sandy's going to grow some wings and fly up to the sky, which was not helping it at all. And it's important to know that that day happened to be Good Friday, okay? Now, 2 days later, it's Easter Sunday. We're still a bunch of miserable kids, and the vet calls us up, and he tells us that Sandy is better than ever, and we can come collect her. So, true story, my dog rose from the dead on Easter Sunday. Seriously, the newspaper printed it as a front page story on the Sunday edition. That's high news in South Dakota. So, but what I want to tell you is, when our tender little minds tried to wrap our heads around this newfound information of our miracle dog, we instantly changed from a bunch of Debbie Downers into, the Van Tromp children on a really bad sugar high. We were jumping on the sofas and singing and super happy. And our mindset instantly changed on what could just be a complete lie. But at the age of 9, at this tender young age of 9, what I stumbled across, totally unbeknownst to me at the time, was a spearhead for a scientific and mindful revolution that wouldn't happen for decades later. What I stumbled across was something called neuroplasticity in positive psychology. And it's the reason I'm here today and the reason I get up in the morning. But it'd be a couple of decades before I fully embraced positive psychology in my daily life. And it would also take a second miracle. See, my life sort of unfolded like this. When I was a junior in college, I studied over in Germany. And it was an absolute fluke because I didn't stand a chance. I studied the language just briefly beforehand, and my parents certainly didn't have the money. But I managed to get a scholarship, and a few months later, I was getting on an airplane for the very first time in my life. Now, when you pluck a girl out of the middle of a cornfield and put her in the middle of Europe for a year, it's life-changing. And I learned a ton. I learned how to speak German fluently, but also really important life skills, like how to open up a beer bottle with a lighter, because when you're a college student, that's important. But I got home from that trip absolutely transformed. I was determined to spend every dime and hustle any way I can to get plane tickets to see this planet. And I did a really good job of it. I lived in California for a little bit, and then I lived in Germany in Washington, D.C. for a little bit. Those kids were my neighbors. And I worked on a Pentagon program that got rid of nuclear weapons in former Soviet Union in Washington, D.C., which is total another talk for another time. I lived in Georgia working for the Olympic Games as a translator. And I lived in Boulder, Colorado, and at that point I was an IT consultant, so I was doing the frequent flyer thing, jetting around the country with a big fat laptop. And at the time that this tech company was about to send me over to their London office to launch their European practice, we got bought out by Microsoft. So here I was living in London at the peak of the dot-com boom as an expat for Microsoft, right? Now, if you could put these 5 rock stars into a blender, you'd have a composite sketch of me at the time. Seriously, I had glitter shooting out of my eye sockets as I went into work each day. I was living the dream. I was traveling all over the world. I was wining and dining in all sorts of unique scenarios, going to concerts and parties, and hanging out with all walks of life. And then about 5 years into this, the dot-com bubble burst, right? And Microsoft offers me a job back in the US to do some programming. Well, I really didn't like programming, and in fact, I was really bad at it. I just did it for the free plane tickets. And I just met a guy, and he and I were going to start a startup at the time. So I did a flight pass. And the startup failed miserably, but the relationship with the guy didn't. He's now my husband. And about a year into this failed startup, or maybe it's about 2 years. It was going south, but we weren't going to give up the ghost. And I get a phone call at 2:30 in the morning from my brother in the United States. And he's telling me that my dad had suddenly passed away from a heart attack. And the months that followed was my great decline into depression. And I don't think there's anything on this planet that you could offer me that would get me to relive these months again. I mean, I struggled to sleep at night. I had terrible insomnia. In fact, I woke at 2:30 every morning, and then I struggled to get out of bed in the morning. And when I did get out of bed, I didn't want to do anything but lay on the sofa and eat hobnobs. So I gained a lot of weight. This is me. I think I was about 180, close to 200. I didn't even want to travel. And I was self-medicating with 6 packs of beer, bottles of wine, good day, maybe a shot of tequila. And so about, I don't know, a few months into this, my husband thinks he better do something. And his idea is to relocate back to South Dakota so I can be closer to my family. Which made it worse because now I had a failed business behind me and I was licking the wounds from that. And I was no longer living in my beloved city of London. And I was back home with my family, and there was a big gaping hole in the middle of the dynamics. And at my very worst, I was suicidal. And then about that time, I came across the great American guru, Morgan Spurlock. He was doing this thing called the 30-day challenge, if you know who he is, where you do something really crazy for 30 days to transform your life. Well, my crazy thing that I was going to do was just keep a gratitude journal every day for 30 days. And what surprised me was how quickly my life had changed in just 2 months of writing 5 things that I was grateful for, 5 things that were awesome each day. I was sleeping better, so I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning, so I was exercising, which meant I was losing weight, which meant my self-confidence went up, and I got job offers, blah, 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 blah. And I was out for a walk one day when this started flooding and occurring to me, how much my life had changed. And it was one of those, what Oprah would call an aha moment. But for me, it was bigger than that. It was like the clouds parted, and like unicorns and rainbows and stars started flying across the sky. Seriously, it was my second miracle. And if you need a visual there, that's how I felt, seriously. I was like, woohoo! And because I instantly thought, I've got to tell the world about this. This is so flipping cool. So that's when I decided to create the Gratitude Journal iPhone app, which was really crazy because I didn't know anything about creating apps. I didn't have any Apple products. I was a Microsoft girl. I don't even think I knew anybody who owned a Mac at the time. And I had a measly $500 budget because I was still financially recovering from my last startup. But I was determined to get at least one stranger aware of the power of gratitude. And in fact, I could see her clearly in my mind's eye. I could see who that person was. And I saw her on television one night. It's this girl she's the secretary from the American version of The Office. That's who I wanted to change. I wanted to change her life. And so I got up 5:30 every morning, worked on the app before going into the day job. And it launched in 2008, and it was freakishly successful. It was featured on Oprah and USA Today and all sorts of newspapers. Apple featured it, and thousands of people downloaded this app. But the cool thing is, and there's the app. The cool thing is that some of these people wrote to me to tell me about how this app has changed their lives. And the stories amaze me. Like, there's a mom who used it when she was recovering from the bereavement of losing her son, which I couldn't imagine. A cancer patient who was using it during her recovery and her chemotherapy. A teenage boy who was being bullied, and he was contemplating suicide. And after using it for a few months, he found his voice and came out to his family and friends. I mean, these guys are they're my heroes. And they're even people at the top of their game. Like, there's this woman, her name is Roz Savage, and she's the first female rower to go across 3 oceans solo. And she was using my app while she was going across the ocean. I had no idea. I mean, this blew my mind. I had no idea when I created this app that it would be out there like this. So now I make apps full time, and I devour anything about neuroplasticity, how our brain works, what makes us happy, and how that translates into success. But what I'm really interested in are the outliers. These are the folks, you're sitting in the audience too. They're above the curve in your intellectual ability, your athletic ability, your sense of humor, your ability to bounce back from really hard situations. And I wanted to figure out, what are you guys eating for breakfast? And what makes you so resilient and so above the curve? And how can we move everybody above the curve so we're all more innovative, creative, and more successful in our organizations and in our schools? And I studied this for a long time, and for 2 years I've been working on an update for the Gratitude Journal app, which I hope to launch this summer. And the developers here in the audience, Peter Samuelson, he's awesome. And so that's going to incorporate a lot of what I learned. And this is what I learned, okay. So we're naturally wired to look out for the negative. It's just a self-survival instinct we've had since we've been using rocks for tools. We're just scoping the landscape, looking for the next big threat. But this ever-persistent vigilance of looking for the negative can send us in a downward spiral and a negative feedback loop, and it doesn't even reflect reality. It's what I like to call the WebMD illusion. Like when you get that tickle or that sore in your throat, so you go out to webmd.com, you put in your symptoms, and 2 minutes later, you realize you got throat cancer or something like that, but really you just ate a tortilla chip wrong or something, See, what we're discovering is that it isn't our reality that shapes us, but the lens in which we view the world that shapes our reality. And if we can change that lens, we can change our world and up our creativity, our innovation, our energy levels, and everything else. See, 90% of our long-term happiness isn't determined by your external world, but the way your brain interprets your external world. So if you can rewire your brain and change how it filters that information, you can change everything about your life. It's true. But see, right now, this is the formula a lot of us have for success. Me included, I had this. We learned that if we work hard, we'll be successful. And once we're successful, then we'll be happy, right? It's how we parent our children, how we manage our staff, and how we motivate ourselves. But it's actually backwards because our brains work the opposite order. If we can be positive in this very moment, in this second, our brains have what's called the happiness advantage. And that's where your creativity, your energy, your innovation, everything rises if you're in a positive state than it does if you're in a negative or stressed or even neutral state, right? But in our strive to get to this success so we can be happy, we're always noticing what's lacking, whether it's not enough sleep, not enough energy, not enough money, I live in the wrong town, and we're always seeing that we don't have enough. I love this quote. I'm a big quote person, so you can read that. And we say things to ourselves that we wouldn't even say to our worst enemy. Now, the cool thing is you can rewire how your brain works so it's naturally in the positive every moment. And the other cool thing is that it only takes a few minutes every day. And I'm going to show you some life hacks on how to do this. But first, I want you to think of your brain as a muscle. And like any muscle, it makes sense to exercise it. And like any muscle, it will grow from that exercise. And the next thing you need to do is make a commitment to do these hacks every day for 30 days. Because first you have to make the habit, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for us to make a habit. And then the habit will make you. So by the time we're shooting off fireworks here in the US, you'll be a changed person, right? Okay, here's the hacks. Hack number 1, obviously, write down 5 groovy things each day that rocked your boat. It can be anything. Bumping into an old friend, a squirrel ran up a tree, it doesn't matter. But you have to actually write them down because there's power in journaling. See, when you journal, your brain relives that moment. So you're actually rewiring the synapses in your brain to go a different route. Okay, and if you're struggling with 5 things, write down 3 things and then come up with 1 thing that would happen. Oh, it's a warning thing. A pop-up came up. Can we pause? No? Yeah? I won't have enough time. There's like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know which one it is. Ta-da. Okay, super duper. Okay, if you're struggling to come up with 5 things, write down 3 things that are good, and then 1 thing that you improved upon, and 1 thing that you did for another person. And if you only do 1 hack, do this one. Now, the next hack is we need to meditate the ADHD out of our digital society. And if you already meditate, you get bonus points. But if you don't, here's an easy way to start. Do this multiple times a day. Just close your eyes and hear the sounds around you, the smells, and for a few seconds, connect to your breath. Don't do this while operating a moving vehicle. And when you open your eyes, check your posture, and then give yourself one of these. Seriously, one of these make you feel great, and it looks cool in a meeting. So do that a few times a day. Now the next one, I love this one. This is a really good one. Pick 30 people to say thank you to. And the reason I love this is one of the reasons that I was kicking myself over and over after my dad died is I never took the chance to tell him he did a good job as a dad. And I really, really regret that. So don't let these opportunities pass you. You know, it could be your parents, but a sibling or a family member, but old coach, somebody you just started working with. And every day, a text, email, a tweet, it doesn't take much, but just pick somebody new every day. And the cool thing is when you're keeping your gratitude journal, you'll find more and more people to be thankful for. So that gets easier. And then we need to meet up more, obviously, with people in the flesh, but it's hard to do it every day. So what I do is I go to an event every Wednesday called A Million Cups, which is just a bunch of creative minds getting together to talk about an idea and figuring out how we can get each other ahead. And that has expanded my social network and my everything. I don't know, Jeff Verkoyen, are you in the audience? Ah, there he is. I met him through that. So he's an iOS rock star. Yeah, and if you don't have something like A Million Cups or a social event like that, just start one. People need it. Then the last one is to just give. Give. I give away 10% of my profits to charity, and it's awesome because when you get those emails that say, you know, my grandma can make a better app than this, you know, you get those. I can look at those kids in Nepal that I'm helping out, and I know it's all worthwhile. So if you can't give financially, you can always give with your time, your knowledge. If somebody's trying to find a job, make an introduction, there's lots of ways. But every day, give. Do 30 days of random act of kindness. And seriously, you'll be rewired after 30 days. Now, I see that look on your face. This is all great, and I may find long-term happiness, and I may find my true calling in life, but the real question is, how does this help me make better apps, right? Because that's what we're here for. All right, well, let me switch gears quickly. You know the 80-20 rule, right? You know, 80% of the wealth is held by 20% of the population, or Microsoft realized that if they got rid of 20% of the software bugs, 80% of the issues would be resolved, or I think maybe they just had to get rid of a bad programmer in London. Okay, over the years, I met a lot of different programmers who were really, really awesome, but they were throwing in the towel because they were saying things like the App Store is saturated, all the low-hanging fruit's gone, the gold rush is over, you need deep pockets to strike it rich. And I thought, well, this is bullshit because I did it, and I know a lot of other people who did it, so what's happening with these guys? And as I dug a little deeper into their scenarios, not all of them, but quite a few of them, I noticed that they invested 80% of their time and energy into the development of the app, which only results in 20% of the success. So they were putting all their efforts into coding up these awesome features, but leaving the marketing and the design as an afterthought. And that is where 80% of your success comes from. So, and this is where mindfulness rules, because you are going to already be in your element, and you're going to automatically connect to your audience, and you're going to connect to them as soon as you have your app idea. And that's when you need to start marketing, by the way. As soon as you get your app idea, you start marketing. And by marketing, I don't mean that traditional marketing. It's the new marketing that everybody's talking about. And that is what leads to success. So let me give you some examples for this. You'll start doing things from the soul, and people dig that stuff, and it's contagious. And I'm not saying you're going to be a bunch of Pollyannas running around. You're going to find out what really makes you happy, and you're going to start exemplifying that, and that's going to attract people. Then you're going to notice other people who are doing stuff from the soul, and you're going to start praising them, and you're going to start complimenting them. And you're going to do it and not expect anything in return, but it is going to bring you a lot in return. And then you're going to create apps that give people superpowers. And the reason you're going to do this is because you're going to be thinking about the benefits of your apps rather than all the features in your apps. And this is a huge one, because how many of you guys don't even read iTunes feedback anymore? Because it just, yeah, I know I'm one. It kills. And you're going to learn that criticism isn't personal. And that's huge, because in order for your designs to be successful, people need to understand them in 15 seconds or less. And even your neighbor who just got an iPad yesterday needs to understand how that app works right away. And the only way to get there is through iterative design process. And that's where you take each level of your design and test it on real people. and you have real people giving you feedback, and you'll realize they're not trying to hurt you, they're trying to help you. And that feedback will help you improve your app idea and improve your design. Even if you're catching the pizza guy as he's dropping off dinner, you're going to be 100% better off than not testing it on anybody. Trust me. Next, I don't know why there's a cow there. I ran out of pictures. You'll aim small. I mean, your target audience, and this is so true, your success is adversely proportional to your target audience. You'll aim small with your target audience because you'll realize that by trying to hit everybody and please everybody, you're going to overload your app with too many features, and it'll just sink it to the bottom of the app store. I mean, not even Coca-Cola pleases everybody. And then lastly, you will give. And this is why I slaved over this book, Idea to iPhone. I was up at 4 a.m. every morning working on it until like 7 p.m. for months because I wanted it out there because I wanted people to, and everybody from your Aunt Bertha to know how to create an app. And you'll just give away your ideas and your knowledge and your time to other people. You'll give away, if there's a girl in the middle of South Dakota trying to figure out how to help create an app, you'll help her out. You'll get her to the next level, and that'll help you out. So I just want to thank you for giving me a half hour of your time. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to take a minute, and then we'll be on to our next speaker.